welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we're once again coming to you from DevCon in the beautiful city of Amsterdam, talking about all things construction technology, the AECO industry, and a whole lot more. Today, we're going to be talking about extended reality, or XR. And XR is kind of an umbrella term for immersive technologies that merge both the physical and virtual worlds. The term XR is used to encompass virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. Help me tell that story. I'm joined by Gary Cowan, the head of digital construction at Kane Group. Gary, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling good, Eric. Thanks very much for having me today.
Yeah, I'm glad we've been able to finally link up. I think we've been connected on LinkedIn for a couple of years now.
We have. Yes, I think I added you many years ago when I discovered the podcast and I started being a fan and watching the show. So it's actually great to meet you in the flesh. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a fun conversation. And your team is doing some really cool work. So let's jump straight into the fun here. I want to dig in on all things extended reality and hear a bit more about what your team is doing. How would you explain the gap between design intent and field reality? So the stuff coordination misses until install, and why it drives so many RFIs and rework?
For me, Eric, it's the fine detail that's needed. Design intent in early stage design is very low LOD. You don't think about all of the small pieces, the fixtures, the clips, all those kinds of things that normally aren't modeled by the majority of MEP design people. And what happens is that, you get a model and there's a lot of services indicated in a corridor or whatever, and there's no indication of how it's actually supported or put together. And other things like maybe fire dampers in walls where there's a specific manufacturing requirement of a certain clearance, and those things aren't picked up in very early stage design. And if that is left unaddressed, what happens is that when it gets to site, when the men and women on the ground go to try and put it together, if it straight away, it just doesn't work. They realize that, there was a mistake, and all these mistakes just compound and grow on top of each other. So what I have found in my career and my experience is the more that you pre-think, the more you put into your model, the more that you account for, the smoother the installation goes on site. And that's where kind of XR came into the sort of play in around about 2016 when we started looking at that technology and bringing it in.
And I'd like to hear a bit more about the types of XR or VR or AR that is in your team's tech stack and how that helps narrow the gap. Like, what does this look like in practice?
Well, we have a complete end-to-end XR tech stack now. So originally it started in virtual reality. It was around about 2017. We looked at a particular job, which is the Claridge's Hotel, and it was a completely pre-manufactured project situated 6 stories below ground. So there was a crazy logistics on the site, and we had to make sure that everything came to site pre-manufactured, signed off, tested, ready to go, so that it could literally be put together on site like a big Lego set, like a big building blocks. And it was so complex. There was something like 11 kilometers of pipework in this model. It was so tight. There was no real other way to design review this. It was so dense. And if you looked at it on a computer screen, it was like a Where's Wally picture. You just couldn't pick anything out. So that was the sort of birth of VR design reviews for us. And what that does is it allows all of our team, no matter where they're located in the world, we have regional offices all over the UK now. So at any stage, any of our design or operations or pre-con team, anyone in the whole company, it's not even just limited to the design, obviously. It's anyone who wants to slip the headset on can jump straight into the digital model, do a design review, almost like a real site walk, but in a digital sense. So it lets you look at the model from it's a totally different way of consuming the model. Everybody's used to looking at 2D screens and everyone's used to looking at things. But an analogy that I always use is that imagine that I asked 2 people to describe the Eiffel Tower to me. Mm-hmm. And one person, I give them a 2D photograph and said, go and look at that for an hour. Or the other person, I put on a plane and I took them to Paris and we stood and looked at it together. If I asked both those people then to convey what the Eiffel Tower is, who do you think is going to give you the most accurate, the most vivid representation of what it was? It was the person who's seen it.
Oh, absolutely.
And virtual reality is the closest that we can actually get to that without physically going onto the site. So it's great for like juniors and younger people. It removes the safety aspect. So we can give our junior design engineers almost real world access to the site without actually putting them in danger as well.
I love the intention behind getting all of this information together. And I can empathize with the density of that example that you shared at the beginning, where everything was just so complex. You look at it at a screen and it's just a jumble. It's hard to parse and really evaluate. But I also have empathy with the folks who have been burned with a lot of prefabricated elements that have been brought on site and they didn't fit. And it's been hard to convince folks to adopt that methodology in the future because they go, well, it didn't work last time because it didn't fit in the way that we expected. But on top of that, too, your example of drawing the Eiffel Tower and having the level of detail necessary, I have to chuckle, and this is a little personal, but like I have aphantasia, and so the mind's eye, I guess. Let me qualify that for everybody. So everybody, to some degree, has a mind's eye as far as imagine what something looks like in your brain, and some people have very vivid mind's eyes, and or in the case of myself, do not. I think mostly in pure information, and so for me, being able to stand in front of something or see a picture of something or stand in virtual reality resonates so much more because my ability to take what you might verbally describe me to me and picture it is going to be really dang hard if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, the way that we operate is that we have design managers in the company who are responsible for the general design, and then we have a BIM team who do the actual modelling. So those two groups of people work really, really closely together. And obviously the traditional way of that, the way that we started years and years ago, was either the design manager sat with the BIM technician and you lost that BIM technician for how many hours it was that they were working, or else it was a red pen markup. And for anyone out there that struggles with them, and I'm sure there's millions, trying to convey design intent with scribbles on a page is impossible for me. How could you ever get an accurate picture across from one individual to another? But with you and me being able to slip a headset on and say we walked over to there, I can actually doodle in 3D. So I can doodle the answer in front of you and you're standing watching it going, yep, I get. So the time taken for design review, markup, the regeneration of the model, we're looking to try and compress that down to a session almost, instead of being the traditional, you make the drawing, I'll mark it up, I'll send it back to you, you take time. All this backwards and forwards just takes time, and for me it's inefficient. So I'm always looking for new ways to think outside the box. I've always been an innovator, and I've always been able to sort of read the tea leaves, as I call it. I can see these technologies, I can see how I can piece them together, even if it isn't intrinsically obvious to anyone else. I can kind of see the magic click together points. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Let's get the VR in. But it was a very, very long road to get there. Do you know what I mean? There were so many aspects of the surrounding workflows and technologies that almost had to be put in place for it to actually work. You can't just buy VR and stick it on and it solves all your problems. You have to have all of your modeling up to a certain standard. You have to include all the ancillary objects. You have to understand your model workflow. Is it hosted on an ACC? Are you exporting Navisworks? There's so many moving parts to that stew, to make it nice. It takes a bit of skill and a bit of foresight and a bit of knowledge.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of empathy because you can't just magically wave a wand and say, okay, now we're going to go into VR. I love it if you could paint a more thorough picture for us on what it's like to use the technology to put the headset on and actually mark things up and participate in design reviews. Like, what is it like for somebody who's never worn a VR headset before?
I think it's very exciting. For me, whenever the first time I ever walked into VR on a project that we were building, because I'd spent many years on the sites, I came from the sites. I was a design engineer by education and by degree, but I spent my first few years in the industry actually out on the sites, putting things together, trying to learn how all this works, because I was never going to be able to design it if I didn't understand it and appreciate it going forward. So when I get people who are modelling and involved in this design process, when you put them into that virtual reality, it's almost like a penny drop moment. It makes it real to them. Everything's theory in Revit, everything's imaginary. You don't get a sense of the scale of what it is that you're drawing. So access, egress, are you going to bang your head on that? Looking at it on paper, people say, yeah, I think that's okay. Look, all right, I've cut a section, looks okay. But when you put the headset on and you walk in, you see people go, oh. And you can see people looking at their own work and they can go, oh. I call it trousers down moment. It is literally all the shortcuts, all the bodges that people use to make something look okay on 2D or 3D. It just totally is shown. So it almost raises the bar, almost, because people can see it has context. So they don't get away with a lot of the shortcuts that people would have got away with before. And it kind of shows the entire design intent. And it's really good for the clients as well. So obviously we do this for our clients too. In that Claridge's project, as an example, the client Mayborn Group were really after the Google type plant room. They wanted vivid colours and all that kind of stuff. So we were able to give them 3 sort of colour tone options and do the colours in separate files, and then put the client into the VR, have a wee walk around, and then they were able to say, look, I think option 2 was my favourite, and then that was decided. And you can imagine many times people have looked at a colour on a piece of paper and went, I like that. And then when the place is fully wrapped, they went,
maybe not.
Don't know if I like that now. And so, I mean, the possibilities are endless. It's almost like a spider diagram. So we use it really for design review, is what VR is for, but it can be used for training. It can be used for visualization. It can be used for decision making. It's a versatile tool, but it really is for the pre-manufacture part of the process. You know, it's for when everything is still in a virtual sense. It lets us review, make sure everything's right, and then part of the feedback loop is that the team who are set to actually install whatever it is, we're now trying to push that those guys on site get access to the VR before they actually walk the real site, so that it's the same idea as the Eiffel Tower. They've already seen it in their mind's eye, so that when they go to actually put it in, it's like it's already familiar. So how much time is always wasted at the start of a project by the site team just getting to grips with the building, understanding where everything goes, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's amazing for me. I think it's brilliant.
And I think the tech has moved forward so rapidly in recent years too. I remember the first time I put on a VR headset, and I wasn't particularly impressed. Like, it was super heavy. The visualizations were laggy and not great. And I think every time I talk to somebody who's kind of rooted in what might have been the case 7 or 8 years ago with the headsets, I encourage them to put a headset on again, because the cost to get into something very high quality has gone down dramatically. The weight of the tools has gotten considerably less. It's just a very different look. And I look back at one of the last GCs that I worked at, and we were using VR in such a limited way. For the most part, it was just, we were modeling a portion of a bid to show it to the client during the interview stage so they could see what their building would look like. It was mostly a marketing tool at that point. And everything you're sharing here, the depth of the conversation you're able to have using these tools has changed so dramatically. You can go in, you can do that site walk. You can go, hey, that pipe is very obviously coming out of the middle of the wall. That doesn't make any sense. Do you have any other examples you could share as far as that aha moment of walking into a space in VR and having a very clear vision of, oh, this isn't the way it should be?
It really, the very first time that I put VR on was kind of that aha moment for me, to be honest with you. At that stage, we were doing a project in London, and it was quite a complex enough wee job. It was a residential job. And at that stage, we were really confident in our BIM. This was 2016 sort of time. So we were very sure that our models were good and they were full of stuff. And I started experimenting with the VR, and I got an opportunity to try a few different suites, and sort of settled on Prospect, as it was at the time, from RSVR. And the very first model export that I did, it just didn't even load. It just crashed immediately. And I was like, right, this is great. So almost very much nearly put me off straight away.
Yeah.
Having been a 90s kid and grew up seeing VR as a gimmick, it was always gimmicky and it was always bulky. So I almost waited 25 years to be able to get my hands on a VR headset. So when I got one, I was absolutely delighted.
I'm thinking back to the Virtual Boys from like the early 90s, those giant ones on a
Huge
tripod.
thing. And they had to have legs because you couldn't actually hold a weight. And I remember going to an arcade and there was a VR machine, but the headset was like suspended from chains because of the weight of it. And you had to kind of put your head up into it. So like I was so excited when the first Oculus came out. And then I was almost crestfallen because the software wouldn't work. So that's where I reached out to the developers directly. I rang them in New York and said, look, introduced myself, said, look, I would really love to try your software, but unfortunately it just won't even load for me, you know. And at first I was just thinking, is it a general error, you know what I mean? But then when I got into conversation with them guys and they said, well, look, send us over your model and we'll have a look at it. And I sent them a copy of the model over and they rang me back and went, we have never seen anything like this. This is space age. So very quickly we entered into an NDA and we started providing them with models for them to optimize the code, and thankfully then that started to work. But as you said, it was very cumbersome at the time. We could only ever export one area of a building, not the entire building. So you could only slice out a floor. And sometimes if the floor was very complicated, you had to half the floor again. So you were losing context of what was on down the corridor as such. But then as time has progressed, then what happened was Iris Prospect Ren ultimately was bought by Autodesk and became now the Autodesk XR team. And I've maintained the relationships with those guys, and great team, great bunch of guys. And they invited me after a year or two then to be part of the Workshop XR team as a beta tester and providing models again. So today it's night and day. Like I can't explain to you how quickly, after waiting 20 years for a headset and getting the Oculus Rift to today, where we're on the Quest 3, is almost a 50-year progression of technology. It is absolutely mind-blowing what the Quest 3 is actually capable of doing. There's a number of great engines out there now that are available for VR. Workshop XR is what we use. There's a number of other good ones out there, but they're all harnessing this new standalone headset, and they're able to do some brilliant things. So Workshop XR is obviously fully integrated in the ACC, so it just fits into the tool stack absolutely beautifully. Whenever our team publish and do all of their issues, the issue tracking system is also a complete game changer. So if I do a Navisworks clash detection now, I can change and send all of the issues directly to Forma, and then you can literally go and lift the headset and go from point to point through your clash detection. So instead of doing a Navisworks clash detection, and we've all suffered Navisworks clash reports where you get this little tiny thumbnail and a grid reference and you're like, where the hell is that in the building? No idea. Now you and I can slip a headset on and we can literally have a digital tablet in our hands and we can go through that list one by one, teleport to the problem, look at it, understand what it is, come up with a solution, document it in Forma and move on, which is space age. It's mind-blowing and game-changing, in my opinion.
It's pretty incredible, the rate of change in the technology. And I've heard you describe a feedback loop in the past when you're talking about how your team connects the model to what's happening in the field. What does a healthy model to field to model feedback loop look like in practice?
Obviously, I've been involved in BIM for 25 years now, really, when you think about it. And for many of those years, the BIM model was just a tool to get drawings from. No one cared about, it was a coordination tool for us, certainly in the MEP anyway. It was a means to an end. And the model was developed to a point. And then once the drawings were punched out from the model stopped and it was dead. And it did not move until 2 weeks before we were due to hand the building over. And then there was a mad flurry of markups and people ringing and screaming down the phone, we need this model. So having suffered that for many years, I've been looking to create a feedback loop. And instead of having a linear line with a start and a finish, this is a circle that constantly regenerates and constantly updates. And we're using technology to be able to create that loop. So the XR tech stack is vitally important for what I call closing the loop. So obviously VR is when we're getting ready and we're designing and we're figuring everything out. Then we hit the button and we start manufacturing. And as soon as we start to install on site, that is where our other tool in the XR stack comes in. That's where AR comes in. So we use precision setting out technology as well. We don't use measuring tapes or plumb lines or any of that sort of stuff. We put coordinates in our models for key points like fixing points and hangers and brackets, and also positions of equipment on the floor. And then with the AR, we can walk around in a space and very quickly, and when I say very quickly, within 10, 15 seconds, I can have the latest federated data in my hand. I'm not worried about versions. I'm not worried about drawings. Is that the latest drawing? People would be away checking CDEs for 10 minutes and I would have the answer already in my hand. And the AR lets us see straight away, is everything lining up? And then the decision can be made on the spot. So someone looks at an installation and it's slightly off. They can make the decision in their hand. Is the BIM team wrong? And the BIM team need to update the model. In that case, they can create the issue, assign it to the BIM team, take several photographs with the tablet that all appends to the issue, which makes its way to Forma. And then that is actually, they can just open the issues tab within Revit and get that photographs and all the details in their session in seconds. And I mean seconds, because I've tested it live to see how quick it was, and it's within 30 seconds with someone synchronizing the tablet on site and someone across the Irish Sea in an office gets the answer like that. So it's just taking that process and bringing it down, and that feedback loop. So instead of waiting to the very end and have mad dash, we try and scan and look at the building as we build it. and we try our best to correct as we go, which means that you have actual certainty on your building. So if someone realizes 10, 12 weeks in, oh, we forgot a pipe, there should have been a pipe run down there. Well, if your site has completely deviated from your model and you try to route, you would say, yeah, it fits down the model, no problem. But in real life, oh, there's bits of ductwork and there's cable trays in the way. So you lose the certainty of the BIM model. The BIM model loses its purpose. If you stop the BIM model, you may as well not even have bothered in the first place, in my opinion. You need to keep that BIM model live. And it removes the pain of the as-built process at the end, but it also ensures certainty on your design and on your layouts, which is great for us as a team trying to build it, but it's also great for the client at the end because they can see that what is being constructed is exactly what we're saying we're going to provide.
I love this too because it brings us to the path of having a digital twin in such a more seamless and effective way, because I've seen examples of owners deciding at the end of construction that they would like a digital twin. And that's the worst moment in time to decide that you want to create this living, breathing asset, because now you're scrambling to create something that actually reflects what was built instead of what you're talking about, which is this ongoing conversation, and it's not this mad dash at the end of the conversation. But I think you're also really thoughtfully qualifying how not cumbersome the technology is. And I think that's a misconception a lot of folks have, where they go, okay, I'm going to have to put my headset on. This is going to be an ordeal. I've got to fiddle with it. I've got to get everything going. And granted, to your point earlier, there is some due diligence at the start of your project to enable everything you're talking about here. But once you've done that, it seems fairly seamless.
It's seamless. I mean, we have, I think it's 3 Quest 3s in our head office, and we've got 2 in our London regional office, and now we're starting to roll out a number of headsets heading out to the actual job sites themselves. So we're trying to make it as accessible to everyone. There's no job title attached to them. If you want to look at that building, you're more than welcome to go and lift the headset. We're trying to make it as seamless as we can. The software itself is easy. You know what I mean? You pay for a license for a workshop similar to your own Revit license, so it's attached to your username. It's just another one of the great Autodesk tools that's available.
Well, I love it. And Gary, earlier you mentioned that your teams put a very high level of development or LOD into your models, which I think some folks might consider maybe a little bit beyond what's necessary or in complexity. Why does your team model to this level of detail, and how does it pay off for your project teams and clients?
We spoke before about prefabrication and how it failed and how it has failed for a lot of people. And we were not immune to that either. In the early days when we started doing prefabrication and deciding to try and prefabricate certain aspects or parts of the design, we also failed. And to me, it was due to design fragmentation. So I would have had a Revit team doing all of the building, and then there would have been perhaps an energy centre or a plant room. And generally that was done by our off-site team, the prefab lads and girls that we call them. But in the olden days, that was done in AutoCAD MEP. It was 2 separate systems. So what you ended up with was a Revit model with a big hole in it where the plant room used to be, and a DWG with no surrounding context. And what happens when they live separate for 3 months with 2 separate teams? When you bring them back together again, most likely they will fail.
Yeah.
And then we had other instances where we had sent sort of rigs to site and they were very, very similar, and unfortunately the teams swapped them around and put the wrong rig in the wrong room, and then we went back to find them cutting it and grinding it apart, and you're like, oh my goodness, like the amount of money and time that was spent on that, and just mistakes, and it was human error, and it was, for me, it was too many sources of data, too many people involved. So one of the earliest things I did, I seek to bring everyone into Revit. So all of the prefab and manufacturing aspect that we do in our factory is now done exclusively in Revit, in assembly. So the high LOD is to enable manufacturing directly from the model. So when we draw and put together all these frames for pump rigs and all, the steels have holes drilled in them, they have the fixings, they've got screws. For the level of detail to be able to produce actual manufacturing drawings off the back which satisfy the manufacturing team, it also then opens up lots of other things like digital quantification and the certainty that I talked about whenever you're in virtual reality. So when you're looking at this thing, it is the exact object. It's not being represented in another software and you've only got a representation of it. It is the one and the same object. So it's that single source of truth. It's that single federated data pool that everyone is working on. So that really was the first hurdle to get over, was to get everyone in that mindset, get into Revit, put all the detail into Revit. But that was unheard of even even today, a lot of people still look and shake their heads and say, why do you go to that level of detail? But when you see the effect it has on the site team when they're installing far faster with more certainty, it benefits. There is a thing to it. And then it's opening up lots of other new things that we're looking at for, as I say, digital quantification, analysis, carbon. It's starting to, as a spider diagram, it's starting to head in all the directions. But the important part in the middle is that model. And even from here today and listening to all the great guys here at DevCon, it's just reinforced for me, certainly, that, look, I seen another comment yesterday on LinkedIn. Somebody had said that CDE should be a centralized decision engine. And I thought that was fantastic. That's exactly what Forma provides to people like me. It's a centralized decision engine where everyone can see the same information and see the decisions being made in real time instead of having a doubt or double working or double handling, as we call it.
Yeah.
If we can get it right in that digital model on the table, we can get it right when we go to build it in real world.
It makes sense. I mean, there's surely a bit more time spent up front to get to that point, but the benefits seem to cascade into all aspects of construction. And then after the fact, you have so much more certainty, you have so much more information. There's nobody standing and looking at the documentation and going, well, will it fit? You can say, yes, it will. And we know this, and we can pop up in the model if you disagree. The amount of time spent to get there seems very much worth it at the end of the conversation. How do the owners react to this level of detail?
It's been mixed over the years, let me tell you. Our company's owned by the McMullen family and two oldest brothers, Martin and Cahill, and they've been incredibly supportive for me over the years. I'm so grateful for them guys and believing in me and all my crazy ideas that I've been coming up with. But it hasn't been easy, Eric. A lot of the times those guys doubted me or just didn't see it themselves. Those guys are actually farmers. They actually operate a farm as well as being, leading engineers. So they're not technical like me. I was the BIM guy that was brought in. I was, the technology
kind of
man.
the mad scientist behind everything.
For a long time, there was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of kickback. They didn't want us to spend the money. But as time has progressed and as the tools have been proven and brought in, they have softened, and to the point now where they're actually completely behind it and they understand it and they realise the benefit of. It's a sharp amount of money up front. It really is. You think about it, the amount of time and effort you've got to put in, but you kind of have to bear that storm for the first several years until you get all the workflows and processes in place, and then it's I'll not say smooth sailing, but certainly it's much easier to do much more complex projects, is what we have found.
Yeah.
Our scope of work has vastly increased over the years as we've got better at how we do it as well.
It makes sense. I appreciate you sharing kind of the journey to get there as well. Let's look forward a little bit. If you project maybe 3 to 5 years from now, what do you think is the next big development that might make XR and VR even more common in construction if you had to get out the crystal ball?
Obviously AI.
Yeah.
That's all we've heard about for the last 2 days and probably the last 2 years, 3 years when you think about it. But for me, for the last 3 years, AI has been very much, it's coming. It's got potential. But for me, in the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to see it properly getting implemented. Seen a lot of evidence of it here in DevCon this week.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly real live examples of people actively implementing AI into their real workflows. And for me, I see that snowballing with XR. Think of the Apple Vision Pro and how they've coined spatial computing. Well, I think we'll be doing spatial coordination. We'll not be coordinating in a Revit session on a screen. We'll all be in a model and we'll be making decisions. And I hope that the technology moves with us so that we're not limited to read-only access in XR. Mm-hmm. I would hope that in some stage in the future, we will actually be modeling in VR with the headset on, but with AI assistance. Obviously, I'm a huge geek and a nerd, and I love sort of Marvel and Iron Man and Jarvis. Everyone knows Iron Man has his Jarvis. Well, every construction professional needs their own Jarvis. And wouldn't it be cool if when you slipped your head on, a digital Jarvis appeared beside you and you're able to have a human interaction with the AI and ask it questions and say to it, look, I need ductwork down here. What size is it? It's 500 by 250. Put it up there 2 inches down from the slab. Bang, it's in. That's where I see it going. AI will remove the manual tasks. And when I say manual tasks, I don't mean literally even with your hands. Typing on keyboards will disappear. Searching for emails will disappear. You will be able to have the answer to everything at your fingertips. So I see AI and XR merging together and going forward. And as the hardware increases, so obviously we're waiting on the Quest 4 coming this fall. really excited to see the upgrades and the hardware, but the speed of that is actually scary. Where are we going to be in 10 years' time even? It's actually scary. And for people of my age, I remember old school. I was a 2D AutoCAD user way back in the day. So like for me, I feel like an old grandfather now. I'm amazed by the technology, but it's only going to get better. It's only going to get faster. And I'm just, what a time to be alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's an exciting moment for sure. I think any would-be founders out there should be paying attention to your vision as far as what you would like to see, because that's a pretty cool experience. It's not one I've actually thought about before, where you're in this ideal world of XR and AI combined. You're able to kind of drive the machine in a way. Currently, right now, it's a bit more reactive to what's already been designed. So we'll have to nudge the XR team and see what what's on the table.
They know. I have them tortured. Don't you worry.
I'm not surprised, but it's all in good fun for sure. Well, Gary, I got a couple more questions for you. For one, if a contractor's out there listening right now and they want to start exploring tomorrow, what's the first problem they should target solving versus picking tools?
I think really, what do you need it for? Everybody that's involved in construction needs to use XR for slightly different reasons. An architect, for example, wants to look at the visualization. They want to look at carpet options. They want to look at paint on the walls. That would steer you towards a certain product, rather than the likes of Workshop XR, which is really focused on the design, coordination, clashes, does it actually work? There's a number of different tools available for exactly what you're wanting to do. So I think the first thing for any company to do is, what do we hope to achieve from adopting this technology? Is it just to show off? Is it to impress clients, or is it to actually physically be a proper tool to do coordination? I suppose that would be the first thing. And then the second one would just don't be scared of it. Just go and buy a headset. The cost of adoption is so small today compared to when we started all those years ago. It was tens of thousands of dollars to get a dedicated VR system up and running.
Yep.
And it was parked in a corner of a room and everyone had access to it.
You
Today,
had to be attached to a computer and everything.
yes,
too.
you were
Like, they weren't
actually
standalone.
physically tethered by a wire and
Yeah.
you couldn't move. So as today, I think it's about $500 for a Quest 3. And the Workshop XR licenses, for an example, around about $1,000. So it's not a huge cost for any company, depending on their size and scale. I would just say go for it. Don't be scared of it. See what you can do. It's a discovery. We weren't too sure what we were going to use it for, but I kind of, as I said, seen the answers in the tea leaves and knew that it was going to be space age and it was going to change everything. And I'm glad to say I was right.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your journey as far as kind of getting into the tools. And as I mentioned earlier, I always really encourage folks, if your perspective on VR in particular is based on trying on a headset 5 or 10 years ago, the conversation is dramatically different than where we were in the technology adoption, and the tech curve in general has just had an exponential growth as far as what's actually possible. So Gary, I got one final question for you today. What is one tool you use on every project, no matter what you're working on?
I've been thinking about that question. Obviously, if you were asking me about a physical tool, the answer would be VR. I have my headset on every day. I'm walking every job, looking for mistakes, looking for errors, looking for things that are going to catch us out. But as for me as a human, I would say it's probably my innovation. I'm always looking to try and break the mold, do something new, show how it's done. There always has to be a better way for me. I'm never settled in a routine or a workflow. I'm always looking to see how we can make that faster. We can automate that. We can remove the pain. And a lot of it is just from pain. It's from having to do these things myself and sitting miserable, creating sheets in Revit. My goodness, many people just lose months of their life creating sheets and filling in data. So for me, it's that eye for what's next would be my tool.
I love that though. And I jokingly referred to you as like a mad scientist earlier in our conversation, but I think it's kind of accurate because you're really in the thick of it. And that's why I was so very much looking forward to this conversation, because like you're trying to break the tools. You want to figure out what it can do and what it can't do. But I think the point at the end of what you've just shared here is you're trying to solve problems. You're physically and personally experiencing the challenge, and then you go out there and how can I solve this? And my brain operates in a similar way, and it usually is in reaction to something that's frustrating me, where I go, somebody else has had to have had this problem, right? And then I get on the internet machine and start looking around, and more often than not, I either find a tool or technology or a workflow that hopefully mitigates some of the pain that I'm personally experiencing. And if not, there's a lot of runway to go out and try new things and see if you can fix it. So Gary, I appreciate you again just sharing your journey here with me. For everybody out there listening, of course, this is Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. If you're an audio-only listener, I'm going to once again politely plead for you to head over to YouTube and take a peek at what we're doing, because the set and venue that we're in right now here in Amsterdam is absolutely beautiful. Also going to make a humble request. If you really enjoyed this episode, if you could rate us 5 stars and also maybe send it to a friend. We're always very grateful for your reviews and everything along those lines. And until the next time, goodbye.